We are in the third week of our series called Haunted House. Yes, sir. But guess what? This is not about Halloween. It has nothing to do with Halloween. In this series, we've been learning how when a church loses its direction of its purpose, when we get off track of what Jesus called us to do, then we become empty, powerless, lifeless. That means the house becomes haunted. It's empty. Now, I want to say this. The church is not a building. It's not a building. This building right here, this is just where we come to meet every week. The church is all of us. The Spirit of God lives in all of us. If you're a born-again believer, the Spirit of God lives in you. We're the church. We are the church. So make sure that we don't become lifeless and powerless. Make sure this church, point to yourself and say, I'm the church. Make sure this church doesn't become haunted. Okay, so quick recap. Week number 1, Pastor Ray preached on new life, new purpose. God has given us a new life and a new purpose. Get excited, you guys, get excited. It's new, brand new. Week number 2, God said, we're prepared for this. We're prepared for our purpose. Now, with everything that's going on right now, the news, you turn on the news, it's all negative. Everything is about death and crime and sickness and all kinds of stuff going on. There's so many things that are designed to distract you from spending time with God. There's so many things to distract you from spending time focusing on your purpose. Everybody is trying to get your attention. People are, businesses, like you look at TV shows and sports and stuff like that, and that's good in and of itself, but you have to be careful not to get distracted. Even people are on social media wanting you to follow them. Follow me. Follow this, buy that, right? Now, we have to make sure that in the middle of all of this craziness, we have to choose to follow Jesus. Raise your hand if you heard of a TV show called Squid Game. You heard of Squid Game? If you haven't heard of Squid Game, it's the world's most popular TV show right now. I mean, it's just going crazy all over the world. It's on Netflix. And so there's an actress on this TV show. She's never acted before. This is her first TV series. She went from maybe about 400,000 followers on Instagram. In 3 weeks, she went up to 15 million followers on Instagram. In just 3 weeks, 15 million people decided to follow her on Instagram. And the crazy thing is, she's not doing nothing for them. She's not doing nothing for them. She doesn't even know who they are. But people are following her because of the popularity of this TV show. So there's all kinds of stuff being thrown at you. Follow me, follow me. Now, with all the followers that she has, us being the body of Christ, there's really only one person that we should be really following. Amen? What's his name? Jesus. What's his name? Jesus. We should be following Jesus and Jesus only. Now, I'm not saying that you can't follow people on social media. I'm not saying that. But even when they're surrounded by this stuff in this lost world, we have to choose to follow Jesus. Now, that's why I titled the sermon simply, Follow Jesus. Follow Jesus. Now, what does follow mean? Follow means, I'm going to read the definition. Follow means to go or come after a person or a thing that's proceeding ahead. To move or travel behind, to be led by someone or something. So if you're a follower, that means there has to be someone what? Leading. Exactly. Now, you could be following a bad leader or a good leader. So now, as God's people, we should be following Jesus. But the thing is this, how do we follow Jesus? I mean, literally, Jesus is not physically here on earth like he was 2,000 years ago. So we can't like physically walk and follow him. So how do we follow Jesus? Like realistically, how do we follow? The word has the answer for us. Now, everybody say, Holy Ghost time machine. Okay, we're about to go into the Holy Ghost time machine. And we're going back. We're going back 2,000 years ago. Now, this is the Gospel of Mark. Mark is the second gospel. They don't exactly know who wrote it, but they know this guy named probably John Mark, who took some notes for Peter and was right there with them. They attribute him to be the author. And it was written anywhere between 50 and 65 AD, right? Now, Mark is considered one of the action gospels. He doesn't waste no time. He gets right to the action. Think of the book of Mark as a trailer for an action movie. You know, when you watch an action movie trailer, it's just nothing but the highlights, stuff exploding, people running, people screaming and hollering and stuff. It's action. That's the way the book of Mark is, right? Now, in the book of Mark, the first 7 chapters 1 through 7, Jesus was doing all these miracles. He was full blown into his ministry at that time. I mean, he'd fed the 5,000. He fed the 4,000. He raised Jairus' daughter from the dead. On his way to healing Jairus' daughter, he ran across the woman with the issue of blood and healed her. He walked on the water. He rebuked the wind and the waves and told everything to calm down. So Jesus had the power to control weather, right? He healed the man that was paralyzed. You know, when they broke the roof open and let him down. That happened in the first 7 chapters of Mark. So in chapter 8, they're on their way to Caesarea Philippi. And Jesus was walking with his disciples, and there was like multitudes of people following him. He was super popular at that time, right? And he didn't do it without Facebook, and he did it without Instagram. He did it without Facebook. He did it without TikTok. It was the anointing of God that was on his life, right? He was the Son of God. He was the Messiah, and he was doing what he was called to do. And so he asked the disciples, "Who do men say that I am?" Who do people say that I am? And Peter said, well, I mean, some people say you're Elijah, the prophet, come back again. Some people say you're the prophet Jeremiah. Some people say you're John the Baptist. You know, and then Jesus hit him with a heavy question. He got real quiet. And then he looked at them and said, but who do you say I am? I know what everyone else is saying, but who do you say that I am? What about you? What do you think? And Peter said, you're the Christ. You're the Son of the living God. And so Jesus, at that time, Jesus said, flesh and blood did not reveal that to you, which means no person told him that. That was a divine revelation by the Spirit of God from God himself to Peter. So they knew who Jesus was because he was doing all this stuff. Okay? And then he says to them, pretty much, now that you know who I am, I want a deeper commitment. I want you to really follow me. And it's interesting because in the book of John, that's when he said, you know, if you want to follow me, eat my flesh and drink my blood. Now, of course, that sounds gruesome on the outside, right? Because God is not a cannibal. I'm not going to eat nobody's flesh and drink no blood. That's crazy, right? But at that time, a lot of people thought that's what he was talking about. And it says they left. They saw what he was doing, but after that, when it was time for them to make a deeper commitment, they walked away because it wasn't in their heart. So now, God is telling us, you know who I am. I've been in your life. I saved you. I died on the cross for you. I've taken care of your family. I've provided for you. You know who I am. Now it's time to follow me on a deeper level. So, who is Jesus? Jesus is God. Jesus is the first and the last, the Alpha and the Omega. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Jesus is God incarnate, 100% man, 100% God at the same time. So I'm going to just say this real quick. Now that we know who Jesus is, we should follow him. But I also want to say who he is not. This is just a disclaimer. Jesus is not the universe. And I know some people say, well, the universe led me here. And the universe took care of my family. And the universe created these opportunities. The universe was created by God. The universe was created by God. The universe doesn't love you. The universe has no feelings for you. The universe did not die on the cross for your sin. Jesus is God. Jesus is not Mother Nature. Jesus is not Mother Nature. The elements or nature is a creation of God. He's in control of that. Jesus was not just a good man or a good teacher or just a great prophet or a sage. Jesus is God in the flesh, and he's living right now. Also, too, Jesus is not your horoscope. Oh, man, that's good. Listen, Jesus is not your horoscope. Jesus is not a tarot card reading or a palm reader or voodoo or witchcraft or a cult. Jesus is living. Do not put your trust in other gods and other stuff. Everything you need is right in that word of God, in a relationship with Jesus Christ. Now that we know who Jesus is not, so now if we know who Jesus is, he's the way, the truth, and the life, the Alpha and the Omega. He died for our sin, and we belong to him. Then we should follow Jesus and Jesus only. But we have to know how to do that. We have to know how. So before we talk about how, you have to make a decision that you want to be a follower. Because some people just don't want to follow people. So, Mark chapter 8, verse 34. In Mark chapter 8, verse 34, Jesus gives us the strategy. And the word of the Lord reads, Amen. Then calling the crowd to join his disciples, he said, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me. Now, in that, Jesus gives us 3 key steps on how to follow him. But first, you have to decide that you want to be a follower. You have to want to be a follower. Because remember, when he said, if you try, it says here in 34, it says, if any of you wants to be my follower. So I'm assuming that everybody in here wants to be a follower of Jesus, right? Okay, I just want to make sure I'm in the right spot. Perfect. So now, everybody say step one. Step one. Step one on how to be a follower of Jesus is you must give up your own way. I know that's tough. It just don't feel good. You have to give up your own way, and that's a challenge. It's a challenge. Let's go here what the word has to say. We're reading from chapter 8, verses 35 to 37, and the word of the Lord reads, Amen. Jesus says, if you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake and for the sake of the good news or the gospel, you will save it. Verse 36 says, and what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Is there anything worth more than your soul? We have to humble ourselves, submit to God, and die to ourselves. That's tough because we've been so used to doing what we want to do when we want to do it. We want to be God ourselves. Let's just keep it real. We want to control stuff. We want to control other people. We want to do what we want to do. And sometimes we only want God to tell us what to do when it's convenient for us. We can't be a true follower of Jesus if you're like that. He requires true submission, complete submission. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have desires and make decisions, things like that. No, God gave us all free will. But the thing is, he wants us to trust him and humble ourselves and die to ourselves. That way he can have full, total control. And everything we need is in Jesus. Everything we need. It's interesting because the youth leader, Ephraim, I was talking to him and he has this saying. He says, discipleship has an ugly cousin and his name is discipline. Discipleship, we like discipleship. Yes, I'm in the discipleship program. I'm in discipleship. I'm being discipled. It sounds good. It sounds like we're real deep. But then when your fingernails get dirty and your knees get ashy and you get down there in the grind of discipleship, that means it's discipline. That's the ugly cousin. It hurts. It's painful. It don't look good. It don't smell good. It don't feel good, but it's good for you. That's what we need, discipline. That's why we have to just give up, because Jesus knows exactly what we need. We have to discipline ourselves, give up our own desires. Now, in verse 36, what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Now, what is a soul? What is your soul? Your soul is your mind, your will, your emotions. It what makes you, you. Now, when God created humans, we're made of three parts. Just really quickly. We're a body, a physical body, and God breathed his spirit into us, so we're spirit. But then when he created Adam, he said, and man became a living soul. So we have a soul also. Now, God says your soul is more important than the whole world. That's how much he loves us. He said, what would be a benefit to you if you had all the money and all the land and all the cars and all the food and all the people, everything in the whole world? That still wouldn't be worth your soul. Your soul is the number one priority that you have. And you're in control of that. God made you a steward of your own soul. He gave us free will. You can choose where you want your soul to go. That's why he's saying, choose life. Trust me. I can protect you. Are you with me so far? Okay. Now, when I went into the men's home, I knew I needed help. Now, I didn't have a drug problem. I didn't have an alcohol problem. Didn't have any addiction problems. But I had sin in my heart. And it got to the point, God used my wife and used my marriage to show me how selfish I was, how double-minded I was. And so much stuff was going on. I was like, oh my God, I need help. And thank God for the men's home, because I was my own God. I was my own Pharaoh. But I still had a form of godliness. I would still go to church. I would still pray. I would still smile and be polite. And I thought I was doing the right thing. But everything was about me and what I wanted. And I had to be willing to give up everything. I had to be willing to give up my own way when I came into that home, because they taught me in that home complete submission, total submission. And that's what I had to do, surrender, exactly. Even Dex Davis, the cartoon series that God chose me to be an overseer of, that became my identity. It became an idol. I started to be known as the Dex Davis guy. And I loved it because that was mine. I coveted it, which means I took what God gave me and I said, nope, I don't need you no more, God. This is mine. I got it. God loves me so much that he sent me to the home so I can get rid of that. Because he said, look, if I let you go further, you'll get tricked in a minute. You'll get destroyed because of that pride in your heart. I had to be willing to give up Dex David, just like Abraham was willing to sacrifice his son Isaac. I had to be willing to give it up. I had to be willing to give up everything. I didn't even know what was going to happen to me after 6 months. I didn't care. I just wanted Jesus. Amen. I just wanted Jesus. I wanted my heart to be right with Jesus. I wanted to be in good standing with Jesus. So now, what does that mean for all of us? What does that mean? It's a cool story. What does it mean? This is what we need to do. Trust Jesus with your life and die to yourself. So whatever that thing is, Now, I'm not saying that you have to just completely just leave everything and walk away from your job and just start walking. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about search yourself. You know, we're all adults. You know what's hindering you from really surrendering everything to God. It might be unforgiveness. Somebody might have done something to you when you was a kid and you still haven't forgiven them. It might be pride. It might be bitterness, anger. Whatever it is, give that thing to God. Repent and trust God. Trust Jesus. He cares for you. He died for your sin. Give up your own way. That's step number one. Step number two. Take up your cross. The word of the Lord reads, Mark chapter 8, verse 34. It says, then calling the crowd to join his disciples, he said, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me. Now, at that time, when Jesus was crucified, he literally had to carry this heavy, jagged wooden cross on his back. Now, some say instead of the whole cross, it was just the crossbar, the actual horizontal part, right? And they say that weighed anywhere between 70 and 90 pounds. Now, remember, Jesus had already stayed up all night getting beat and whipped. He had the crown of thorns in his head. And it wasn't just a little thin bandana on with a couple of spikes on it like we see in the movies and on TV. It was like a motorcycle helmet of thorns that was pushed into his head. Long thorns. He'd been beaten to a pulp. He was unrecognizable as a man. And I know a lot of times with pictures, we see him on the cross where he has this loincloth on and everything. He has his head down like that, right? He was completely naked. He was totally naked. He was bleeding. His flesh was ripped to shreds. And he still had to carry that crossbar. That was his purpose, to die on the cross for our sin. And he did that because he loves us. He carried his own cross because he loves us. He loves you. He loves me. He was willing to look humiliated. He was willing to go through all that for us. How could you not follow Jesus all the way? The cross was Jesus' purpose. So Jesus wasn't just trying to save Jewish people. His plan was to save everybody. Okay? And I just want to say this. This is another public service announcement. Jesus is not just to save black people only. Jesus is not here to just save black people only. And guess what? Jesus is not just to save white people only. I got another one. Jesus is not here just to save Hispanic people only. Jesus is not here just to save Asian people only. Jesus came to save everybody. Amen. Give the Lord a hand of praise for Jesus. Hallelujah. So, now back to our regularly scheduled program. His mission was to save the whole world for all time. So, when we take up our cross, it's not just about us. It's about all the people that are waiting on you to walk in your purpose. It's all the people that are waiting on you to be saved and delivered because of what God is going to do through you. That's why we have to take up our cross. Because it's not about us. The decision that you make today, right now, to follow Jesus will affect your children's children. You may not even have children right now, but it's going to affect your family. Take it serious. There's people looking at you. There's people depending on you. God is using you. Each and every one of us in here has an assignment and a purpose. That's powerful. That is powerful. So, once again, I went to the rise home and I had to carry my cross. Because see, my family thought that, well, he could never do that. He could never do that. No, he would never do that. I was like, yeah, I did. Because we like to justify our sin and compare our sin to everyone else, right? So my pride, I was hurt. My ego was hurt because I was humiliated. I was embarrassed. But I needed that to break all that stuff off of me because God was doing something new in me. So what does that mean for us? Deal with your own sins and don't compare yourself to anybody else. Don't say, well, I'm okay, but this guy over here, he needs to go. He needs help. No, each of us have our own stuff. Carry your own cross. Amen. Amen. Now that we decided to give up our own way and we picked up our cross, finally, it's time to, step number 3, follow Jesus. Follow Jesus. That's the next step. And the word of the Lord reads, if anyone is ashamed of me and my message in these adulterous and sinful days, the Son of Man will be ashamed of that person when he returns in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. So now what does ashamed mean? What does it actually mean? The definition, I'm going to read it. The first definition says, embarrassed or guilty because of one's actions, characteristics, or associations. Number 2, reluctant to do something through fear or embarrassment or humiliation. We can't be ashamed of Jesus. We can't be embarrassed to be one of those Jesus people. I know how it is because I was. And even now, sometimes I'm like, oh, man, I don't want people looking at me like I'm one of those weird people. That's the wrong attitude. But you know what gets me out of that? When I remember what Jesus did for me, I feel that conviction like, man, you know what? I can't be like that. Jesus has been too good to us for us to be ashamed of him. Now, listen, you have to follow Jesus and Jesus only. You can't follow Jesus and another religion. You can't follow Jesus and New Age and occultism. You can't be double-minded. Jesus said either you're going to be hot or cold. There's no lukewarm. Now, there's a time coming right now. It's getting hot. Listen, the world is getting crazier and crazier. You're going to have to make a decision. Either you're going to stand for Jesus and Jesus only or not. It's no gray area. That's why God is encouraging us, make a commitment to follow him. Because if we do that, it'll be the most exciting, abundant roller coaster ride of life that we've ever seen. Man, you can't follow Jesus and yourself. We have to give up our own way. So, in John chapter 6, it's not even written, but that's when when John said when Jesus said to Peter, all the other followers left, and it was just them and the disciples. And Jesus turned around and Peter said, so everyone else left, so y'all gonna leave also? And this is what Peter said. Peter said, where are we gonna go? I mean, you have the keys to eternal life. Where else can we go? If we already belong to Jesus, where else are you gonna go for your healing? Who else are you gonna go for your sanctification and salvation? Where else are you gonna go? Jesus is the only way. Let's follow Jesus. Now, that means if you're embarrassed or you're ashamed, that doesn't mean that you're going to hell or you're going to get kicked out. No, it just means that, just like a child, when you tell a child what to do and they still disobey, the parents are kind of ashamed, like, oh man, you could have done better. That doesn't mean that they stop being a parent, right? So I don't want anybody to think that, okay, well, if I'm kind of embarrassed of Jesus, I'm going to hell and I'm done. No. You're still his child. But he'll be disappointed in us. And that's when this conviction will come and get us to do better. Because there's always room to improve and do better. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you a quick story. Back when I was in L.A., I had a real good friend of mine. His name was Lamar, and then his wife's name Sandra. So we went out one day. Now, it wasn't a double date. I just want to clear that up. It wasn't a double date. But anyway, Sandra brought one of her friends. And I'll say this, according to the beauty standards of society, she was not considered, favorable. I'm just going to say it like that. So we were just hanging out. It wasn't a date, but the way it looked was, okay, Lamar was there with his wife, so then it made it look like I'm there with, you see what I'm saying? I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. Like I would walk purposely away from her. Because why? I didn't want to be seen around her. Now that was wrong. That was immature of me. It was cold-blooded, exactly. Exactly, cold-blooded. I was embarrassed. That was wrong. Because I didn't want to be, it was about what people would think about me. We'd be walking, and then people would look at me, and then look at her, and then look at me again, and then they'd look like, is that you? That's you? And I was like, no, it ain't me. No, it ain't me. But that was the wrong attitude. At that time, I hadn't given up my own way yet. I hadn't learned to carry my cross. I was still, selfish. But what does that mean for us? We can't be ashamed of Jesus. We can't be embarrassed. We got to be bold for Jesus. We got to be willing to look foolish for Jesus. Because he was willing to look foolish for us. Because he loves us. Amen. Now, family, now is time for us to be true followers of Jesus. But we can't have fear. We have to be fearless and bold to follow Jesus. The world needs us. People need us to walk in our God-given purpose so God can use us to be a blessing to them. Listen, this is your call. This is your moment to make a choice to follow Jesus with your whole heart. Some of us have been following him, but it's time to turn from being a fan of Jesus to being a follower. Now, I'm a Prince fan. I'm a fan of Prince. I think Prince is one of the most gifted musicians before he passed away. One of the most gifted musicians on the planet. I knew stuff about him, like facts about him. I knew that he could make pancakes and play basketball. I knew he was from Minneapolis, right? But I didn't know him personally. It's time for us to stop being a fan, knowing facts about and information about Jesus, to becoming a follower, intimately experiencing Jesus. That's the key. That is the key. So let's recap the steps. Give up your own way. Carry your own cross. And follow Jesus boldly. Everybody say, I will. Follow Jesus. I will. Follow Jesus. Before you become a follower, before you can become a follower of Jesus, if you're not a follower of Jesus, if you're new, if you're in this room right now and you haven't received Jesus Christ as your Lord and your Savior, before you could become a follower, you have to be a child of God first. So if you haven't been born again, you have to repent of your sin. Just ask God to forgive you and receive him as your Lord and your Savior. So at the end of the service, we're going to have prayer warriors on the left and the right side of the stage. Don't be embarrassed. Come down to the front. Jesus is here. You can be led to an abundant life. So if you already are born again, now it's time to have a deeper commitment to follow Jesus. Everybody say, I will. Follow Jesus. This is the most exciting time to be alive, you guys. I'm telling you, it seems like it's crazy in the news, but right now, God has us positioned right where he wants us to be. And this movement is going to happen with or without all of us. God is choosing us to take part in this end time ministry. Amen. He's choosing us. He loves us. So I'm going to pray out. And when I pray out, I want everybody to listen. And I want everybody to make a decision, to make a choice to do this word, to be a follower. So Father, in Jesus' name, God, we thank you for your word. I come against the spirit of fear right now. The spirit of fear that will come to stop us from moving in complete boldness and total surrender. God, I pray that you give everyone boldness to be followers of Jesus, true followers of Jesus. So we can follow Jesus recklessly. And God, I thank you that we're not just hearers of the word, but we're doers of it. We're going to do it. And I'm excited for each and every one of my brothers and sisters in this room right now, because you've chosen us to be special. God, you love us. And we just want to love on you like little kids. God, I thank you for trusting us. Thank you for stirring up our gifts. And God, I thank you for teaching us how to give up our own way and carry our own cross. God, we need your help. We love you, Jesus. And we give you all the glory and all the praise and all the credit in Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen. God bless you.
Thank you for joining us here at Rise Church Online. We hope today's message was impactful. Listen, we want to stay connected with you. So by clicking on the link below, you can find out how to do that. Also, by clicking on that giving link, you can help us continue to advance the kingdom of God through discipleship and outreach. Please subscribe to our channel for all new content. We'll see you next week. Thank you, and God bless.